If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, former writer, full-time observer. That is not Jack Hirsch. We are joined by producer Brian Arndt, who is a big Detroit Lions fan, somewhat of a quasi-boxing fan. And Brian, you know what? We'll get to some boxing later, but Jack had to take care of something before we came on the air. There's a chance he'll be back. If not, it's me and Brian, and I'm sure we'll have a good time, and hopefully you guys will too. Brian.
Sir.
The Ravens play the Lions tonight. They host the Lions. You are a big Detroit Lion fan. I'm a big Detroit Lion fan because they haven't been good for a while. And guys, we'll get to boxing. They haven't been good for a while, although the last couple of years they were okay, and they made the playoffs and a nice run. But they haven't won a playoff game since 91. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
So I pull hard for them because, as I have said on this show, I would root for the Taliban if they could be the team that prevent the Eagles from going to the Super Bowl. So give us your thoughts on this big game tonight, because this is a Super Bowl. This could be a Super Bowl preview for the fact that, look, it's not out of the realm that the Lions are the best team in the NFC if the Eagles have an injury or they just don't play well. And it's between the Ravens and the Bills. The Chiefs aren't going back.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens are a good team. They've shown this, year after year. They're kind of like, as much as people make a big deal about the Ravens, you got to consider this. They've been in a lot of AFC championships. They've been in the playoffs. They still haven't gotten the Super Bowl. And this is
right.
What, number 8 for Lamar, 7 or 8 for Lamar, and
he's been in the league that long. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he said he's going to win the Super Bowl by year 5. Well, he's long past that, but they have gotten in the playoffs. They just found some way to choke themselves out of it. But I mean, they're in the same situation the Lions are, and if you really think of the Lions have just accelerated their time. As Baltimore has built over their time since being in another Super Bowl. So, I mean, I'm going to put it to you this way. I didn't pick the Lions to win this game only because it's been 20 years since the Lions have won in M&T Bank Stadium. And most of the time they go in there, it's a house of horrors for them. So until you prove me otherwise, I can't. I mean, I hope they win. I do. But I wouldn't pick on them. That's for sure.
I picked on my poll. I did pick the Ravens to cover the spread. I would like to be wrong, but I just think on the road, the Ravens already have a loss. I just think that they're going to be tough to beat home. So I'm going to go with the Ravens and probably to cover. Hope that I'm wrong. But anyhow, I see George Parcells is rubbing it in. Yes, George, I am sad. I'm not an Eagles fan. You know me a long time. Wendy and I were out yesterday at a sports bar watching the game. I'm the only anti-Eagle fan there. And at 26-7, I was telling these guys, these Eagle fans, I said, look, I have seen this movie before. I'm not getting my hopes up. The Eagles are going to come back and win this game. Mm-hmm. So once they go ahead, everybody's, oh, man, how'd you know that? How'd you know? I said, well, because I want the Eagles to lose. I know they're not going to. So when the Rams were about to kick the field goal, I told the guys, I said, look, he's going to make it, or he's going to miss it, or it's going to get blocked. Well, you know what happened? Not only did they block it, they ran it back for a touchdown, which is the worst way for the Eagles to win if you're me. I'd rather the Eagles be up 28-0 in the first quarter so I can write the game off and go do what I want to do and not worry about it. But when they are behind, I know, they're going to steal it at the end. And they did, and I hate to say it, the Eagles are clearly I'm not a fan, but I'm not an idiot. The Eagles are clearly the best team in the NFL. I would not be surprised, Brian, if they challenge the Dolphins' undefeated record.
I think you're pressing that a little bit too far. I don't think Philadelphia's are the best team. Philadelphia is the best team in the NFL. First of all, it's too early to even say that right now. Just because you're 3-0 doesn't mean you're best. Look at the Chargers. If you want to say something, the Chargers are 3-0. I think they're the best team in the NFL because they got defense and they can run the ball. And they've already beaten Kansas City and they've already beaten Denver. So, I mean, they've beaten all three of the opponents that are in their division. So they're, you can say they're clearly the better team, but it's still early in the season. And remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Remember, Philadelphia had one of these years where they started off really well, and then what happened near the end of the season? They bombed, the bottom fell out. And they did
last year after 4 games, they were 2-2, and then they didn't lose until the end of the season. In a meaningless game against the Redskins, who they beat in the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
they lost to Tampa Bay pretty bad, and they lost to Atlanta
early in the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that they already have the coach that's been to 2 bowls, the quarterback that's been to 2 and won 1, and the coach has won 1. Man, when you look at that team, they just have so many good players. And Jalen Hurts does not have to carry that team, but when they need him to step up, he can, and he has done that in big spots. So, and being a Miami Dolphins fan is really painful. Been a Dolphins fan since 1970, and the last 25 years, they're the most dysfunctional organization in the NFL. And it's like, I don't even pay attention to them anymore. So, all right, anyhow, let's talk a little boxing. It's been a week and a couple days since the Crawford fight. And hey, Paul, hi, what's up? And I made a post the other day, Brian, and I said that Crawford was the equal of Sugar Ray Leonard. And it's almost like it's a mortal sin to say that. And the Old Testament reads, "Thou shalt never come a fighter be as good as Sugar Ray Leonard in our lifetime." Well, it's been 45 years. I've never said that about a single fighter. I didn't say it about Roy Jones. I didn't say it about Mayweather, Pacquiao, Donald Curry, all the great guys that have come since 1980. But this guy, Crawford, is that good. And when I watch him fight, Brian, it's like nobody challenges him. He's never even been pushed to a split decision. So there's never been one judge of any of his fights that even flirted that maybe the other guy won. That's not the case with Leonard, as great as he was. And I am the biggest Sugar Ray Leonard fan in the world, but I don't self-delude. And Crawford, he just checks as many boxes. He can punch, he can move. Crawford's even better at analyzing styles and adapting during the fight. I think that he's physically stronger than Leonard and maybe and as durable. I mean, this guy's never been down, never been hurt. And he's had 3 big fights he's had 20 title fights, but I mean 3 big name opponents: Sean Porter, Earl Spence, and Canelo. And Brian, 2 of the guys he stopped for the only time in their career. Porter was never stopped until he fought Crawford. Spence was never stopped until he fought Crawford. And Spence had never lost either. Well, both of those guys never fought after that. So that tells me that not only does he beat you, but he takes something away from you. And now Canelo's even flirting with retiring. So I just think he's off the chart. And I think he's the best pound for pound fighter in the last 45 years. As I said, he checks every box. He's mean. He's tough. He gets better as the fight goes on. And I just think it's sad that like guys my age cannot let go of their generation. It's like, it's their right that like the world has to be in perfect balance only if Sugar Ray Leonard is better than everybody today. And I just think that somebody has come along that I'm not saying is better than Leonard. I'm just saying for the first time, and I thought I'd never live to see this, there's a guy his size that if you told me they're fighting on their best night, for the first time in my lifetime, I can't say Leonard off the bat. If I thought about it for a couple days, maybe I would pick him. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not sure if I would pick him to win.
I like Floyd Mayweather. You see where I'm at. No, I like.
We'll get to Mayweather.
Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard is a really good fight. I mean, I came up from the same. I wasn't an avid boxing fan like you were, and you are, but I mean, I was not tone deaf to the world of boxing back in the day either. So I mean, we had the Mike Tysons, the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Hearn,
Hearns, Aguayo, Duran.
Hearns, yep, Duran, Autumn, and okay. So let's bring this to this millennium, this century. So say you think he's better than Floyd Mayweather, Crawford, that is.
I've always said that Leonard would own Mayweather, and I believe that Crawford would beat him up just as much. I think it really bothers Leonard because Crawford's undefeated, and Crawford doesn't win fights by pity-pat decisions. He hurts guys, he knocks them out, he stops them, and in some cases, they never fight again. He retires them. Floyd Mayweather can't say that. And the other thing about Mayweather is that he was the best manager. He has big names on his record, but if you look at all the big names on his record, they were defeated before they fought him, and actually more conclusively by other fighters before he fought them. But Mayweather was just a great marketer of himself, and he put the black hat on, and he made the fans want to buy his fights because they wanted to see him get beat. In fact, Vince McMahon of the WWE told him after he beat Oscar De La Hoya, he said, Floyd, he said, look, he goes, you're not Oscar De La Hoya. You're not Sugar Ray Leonard. You're not the Pepsi kid. You're not the kid next door. You're a rough guy. You have to adopt the black hat, and your selling card is who has beat me. And as long as you stay undefeated, you can throw that out there. And since it's boxing, you can pick who you're going to fight. And he did that to a T. So I think that under any metric, Crawford is superior to Mayweather. In fact, I'll go as far to say that if they were in the same era, based on what we know about Mayweather, he would have either moved up or down a weight class to avoid fighting Crawford.
I mean, yeah. Is it kind of like with you? Is it kind of like the Jordan versus LeBron, decisions that we had, the GOAT versus the GOAT of this? See, I think LeBron is the best basketball player in this century. And I think that Jordan was one of the best players in the last century. So is that kind of like a conundrum that you have with Sugar Ray and Terrence?
Think about this, and I see what you're saying. I think that's a great comparison. Michael Jordan, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, there's no way you'll think that LeBron is better than him. Mm-hmm. I try to shed that bias, and what makes me very, very fair in this is the fact that I didn't like Michael Jordan. I thought Michael Jordan got the call every time. You could tell the league protected him because they knew if he was on top, it was better for the NBA. I mean, when Michael Jordan played, Brian, if you went near him in the last 2 minutes of the game, he was going to the foul line and he's going to hit them both. And if you breathe on him, they're going to call it. Where on the other end of the floor, he could put you in a chokehold and they're not going to call foul. So let's call balls and strikes here. Jordan was carried and helped by the league. That said, as I get older, and hope wisdom comes with that, I realize that you can't talk about athletes that you didn't see. I didn't see Joe Louis. I didn't see Sugar Ray Robinson. I saw the tapes and I can grasp how good they were. But I did see all of Sugar Ray Leonard's career, all of Floyd Mayweather's, and all of Terrence Crawford's. So I can be very, very honest there. I'm not locked to a certain era. And I can say that Crawford is greater than Mayweather and equally as great as Leonard. I tell Wendy's son all the time, he's a big LeBron fan. I said, look, you didn't play in the era, or you didn't grow up in the era. You didn't see Jordan when he was at the top of his game. I said, the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James is Michael Jordan was feared. LeBron, as big and strong as he is, he's really not feared. Well, like back in the 80s and 90s, you don't want to get Jordan mad because he'd throw 50 on you. Now, you said something interesting, and I kind of make the correlation between Ali and Joe Louis. You said you think LeBron may be the better basketball player than Jordan, right?
Well, no, I said that he is the better basketball player in this century, whereas Jordan was the better player last century. So from anywhere from 1900 to 1999, Jordan was the guy.
Jordan's the best.
2000 to right now is LeBron, because LeBron has done everything. You know, what's up, Sonia?
Hey, Sonia.
He's done everything. You know, he's passed. He's basically got most of the NBA records. I'm talking about LeBron. Most of the NBA records. He's been in a ton of championships. Yes, he hasn't won all of them like Jordan has, but it's still to be in 10 championships. And
right.
How many win? Like, yeah,
he won 4.
He won 4. So I mean, that's still an accomplishment. And he won it like he's won it with 3 different teams. So I mean,
well, the argument is that the Heat, the Cavs, and the Lakers. Yeah. The argument there is though he went and he recruited the best players to play with him. But if you think of it this way, and again, back to Louis and Ali, Michael Jordan isn't as good as a basketball player as LeBron. If you check boxes, LeBron's a better rebounder, a better three-point shooter. He's a better passer, and he can play all the positions on the floor. And he's a better ball handler. The difference is Jordan is actually better at the foul line, but LeBron can drive. The difference is Jordan has that X factor, that clutch DNA that you know when the game is on the line, he's not passing the ball, he's going to take over. So the intangibles that Jordan has, I believe, are the difference. Same thing with Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis. If you check a box, who was a better boxer, who had better defense, who hit harder, who had a better hook, better uppercut, better jab, if you go through in totality and check the boxes, Joe Louis is going to check more boxes than Muhammad Ali. But that doesn't mean that they fought head to head. What Ali brings to the ring, his movement, his durability, his speed, his heart, the intangibles are why I would favor Ali to win. But technically, Joe Louis is the better fighter. So I would say LeBron may be the better player of basketball, but if someone gave me a team and Jordan and LeBron are both out there, I'm going to build my team around Jordan before LeBron. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
you know, go ahead.
You got to think of something about Michael Jordan too. Michael Jordan was scoring 63 points every other game before he had a team around him. And I respect Michael Jordan because he was a competitor. He was tired of scoring all the points for his team and still losing. He didn't like that whole aspect of his team. So he went to membership, and people called him arrogant for doing this, but he went to membership and said, hey, leadership, and say, hey, I need some players around me. I need help. And all great players need help. Tom Brady needed help, some of your best players in history need help, boxing disincluded, because that's a single thing. But I mean, you got to have help, and unless you mean help, and a boxer is like his corner, you know, you got good trainers, you know, good spars and stuff like that. But I'm talking about basically they had to have help. Everybody had to help. That's the difference with team sports. As you know, and Jordan really didn't get recognized until the Pistons really put his face really on the map, because they were the bad boys. There was I don't know how many
he couldn't get past them until he got Pippen.
Right, and they were doing, and that's where the Jordan rules came in, because they would clothesline him every time he came down the lane, push him, you know, physically just abuse him, and he got sick of that and started complaining about it to a degree.
Right.
And so, you know, and since Jordan at the time was going to be the face of the NBA, kind of like LeBron is, so they, you know, the league did things to protect him and to protect the league icon, just like they do with LeBron. LeBron is a flopper, but in saying that, he gets away with a lot of that stuff because the NBA protects him. That's their guy.
All-stars get that. Mayweather got it. He got all the close calls. Ali got it. Sugar Ray Leonard got it. De La Hoya got it. And that's, you know, my father didn't say a whole lot of things to me that I remember, but he did say one thing. He said, son, in sports, it's all about money. He goes, and if you just follow the money, you kind of know where to go. I want to get back to Crawford for a second.
Sure.
Because this kind of segues into it. The stumbling block for Crawford, as far as getting his accolades compared to a Sugar Ray Leonard, is Leonard fought great opponents. He beat Duran. Well, he beat Benitez. He beat Duran. He beat Hearns. And he beat Hagler. So those names are really big names. And it makes it hard because Crawford doesn't have quite that name on his resume. But if you look at the fact of when Leonard fought those guys and the circumstances, there's a path that I can see where Crawford may have defeated those guys as conclusively. He would have clearly beat the Benitez, in my opinion, who Leonard beat for the title. The best fight that Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard had, Duran won. So we're going to have to go against the Duran who Leonard beat, who took the fight on 2 months' notice, 5 months after the first fight, when he was partying. He ballooned up to 200 pounds, and the last thing on his mind was boxing. He was the world's guest. He was in Panama. He was like the president. Then they threw so much money at him, but they said, you have to fight him. You know, you have to be ready in 2 months. Well, what is Duran going to say? So he makes weight barely. They fight, and then we have the No Mas fight where he quits in the 8th round because Leonard was mocking him and making a fool out of him. But that Duran was not the best Duran. That was not the best Duran that Leonard beat. And even if Leonard beat him 2 out of 2, Duran made his mark at lightweight, 135, not 147. So I could see where Crawford could possibly beat the Duran that Leonard beat. Then if you go to the Hearns fight, that's a tall order. I don't know if Crawford beats the Hearns, who was undefeated when he fought Leonard, 32-0, 30 knockouts. But you know what, Brian? I'm not sure he doesn't beat him because he could do the same things that Leonard could do, mostly, and he has the chin. So I think he would get to the later rounds like Leonard did, and then come on. So I can make a case for that. And then the Hagler that Leonard beat, look, that wasn't prime Hagler. The Crawford who beat Canelo last week, I would pick the decision, the Hagler who Leonard beat. So when they talk about these great opponents that Leonard beat, and they were great, and I don't mean to disparage them, I'm just saying, if you look at it with some uncomfortable truths attached, you can make a case that Crawford may have defeated those guys too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I mean, and here's another question I like to pose of you too. I've been meaning to ask this question for you and Jack. Do you think today's boxers are diminished because of the way the boxing is now than it was, say, 20 to 30 years ago. I mean, a lot of people, even younger people, younger generations, this generation right here knows some of the boxers from the 90s. And if they're boxing enthusiasts, okay, they recognize those boxers from the 90s and the 80s. And it seems like there's a lot more boxers from the 90s and the 80s that were respected compared to the boxers of this day and age.
Okay, that's a great question. Basically, I'm going to agree with you. But the reasons are, one, there are so many more choices today. With all the digital and cable channels that we have and the satellite dishes, there's so many more options today. And you have MMA that's in there today. And MMA has taken a lot of the luster from boxing. And a lot of that is because those guys, the best guys, always fight each other. And there's no games played, although it's because it's getting more popular that we're starting to see that. But today, the fighters, it's all about money. They all want, it's like, I want to get that big fight. I want to get that multi-million-dollar fight. And in order to do that, and this is another problem that boxing has that MMA doesn't. In boxing, when you lose that undefeated record, boxing fans no longer have time for you. Where in MMA, you could lose 3 or 4 fights, and if they're close, they still agree, or they'll still go see you. Where in boxing, they don't. So I think between that and it changed today, Brian, because we don't have same-day weigh-ins, we don't have 15 rounds, and there's so much more money than there was today that everybody's trying to get in position to get that big money fight. Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm going to lay low just for a few seconds because I feel like a student when I was in high school. I come in late for class, and the one thing you don't do is start participating when you come in late unless you know what's going on.
I didn't go to class, so I didn't even show up late.
You're probably complaining about Mayweather.
No, I was not complaining about Mayweather, but I'm glad you said that because I've said this to you and I'm going to say it to Brian because he asked about the difference between now and the guys that were popular in the 80s and 90s. I think Mayweather trained the fans on you have to be undefeated. And he made it where if you had a loss, you weren't worth anything. And I just think that he's trained a generation of boxing fans where it's like when Terrence Crawford, if he gets beat, that'll be the fight they focus on. If Mayweather didn't get the decision in the first Castillo fight, he would not be the star that he ended up being. And I think that's what hurt the sport.
Maybe to an extent, but I could play devil's advocate. I could put the blame on Rocky Marciano. All we heard about Marciano, he's got to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. He's unbeaten. He never lost. That's what we'd hear from Marciano supporters, that Rocky Marciano never lost. Had he not gotten a decision in the Roland LaStarza fight on the way up, very close fight, what would we be saying? I mean,
Jack,
yeah.
That's a great point, but there's a big difference, though. Marciano didn't duck anybody. He didn't wait for guys to get old or fight him before they were ready. He fought everybody there was. Now, you could question his opposition because most of the guys he fought were a little bit on the older side, except for LaStarza. But he didn't duck anybody. Mayweather, he retired and unretired to avoid certain guys. He made them come up in weight, down in weight, and all, and so forth. So it's like he played the system. And that's another thing, Brian, when you compare him to Crawford. Crawford has never played the catch-weight game. Every time he's moved up, he never made anybody come down. He's gone up and fought them at their best. Floyd Roy can't say that.
Yeah, but I'm just going to say Mayweather wasn't overly interested in being unbeaten in itself until he hit a certain stage of his career.
Yeah, De La Hoya.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the exact stage was, but it wasn't like he wasn't willing to take certain risks at other times. They're marginal. Look, I know he ducked Antonio Margarito, who now we know Mayweather absolutely would have beaten, but he avoided him at the time. There wasn't a big demand to fight Paul
He
Williams.
ducked Paul Williams too, John.
Yeah, he didn't want to
Jack.
fight Paul Williams.
He knew that was a horrible matchup. So what did he do? He retired and then he fought Ricky Hatton.
Yeah, and Hatton did represent somewhat of a risk. Hatton was a live opponent, and Hatton...
He was coming up from 140, but okay.
Right. And Hatton wound up getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, not based, obviously, on his fight with Mayweather. It was all the wins he had before that. Yeah, you could argue he wasn't a worthy Hall of Famer. I understand late in Mayweather's career, he was extra careful. The Conor McGregor was a fiasco. What a joke, of a fight. One of the biggest joke in boxing history, if you consider that a title fight, a fight of major importance. Andre Berto was past his peak. Not that Berto was so good to begin with, even though he was a belt holder. He fought Marcus Maidana twice, and Maidana was probably past his best. And yeah, he picked and chose. No ifs or buts about it. But the whole idea was to get up to not just be unbeaten, because Andre Ward was unbeaten, Joe Calzaghe was unbeaten throughout their career. No one calls them one of the best ever, unless you're talking specifically of the super middleweight division. They're not considered all-time greats otherwise, even though they were unbeaten.
Jack, here's the difference, and I told you about this before. Mayweather, until he fought Oscar De La Hoya, was not a big star. De La Hoya put him on the map, and that was the last opponent who made more money than Mayweather when they fought. But that's when 24/7 started on HBO, and Mayweather acted like such a jerk during that whole 24/7 thing. He adopted the bad guy role and let Oscar have the good guy role. And if you remember, after that fight, and it was very close, he went on to do the WWE thing against the Big Show in wrestling, and McMahon and Mayweather got along really good, and they mended a friendship. And McMahon told Mayweather, Floyd, you're not the kid next door. You're never going to be Sugar Ray Leonard or De La Hoya. You have to be the bad guy, and your stock and trade is being undefeated. As long as you are undefeated and you come off as the guy wearing the black hat, he said, people will pay to come to see you fight, and it doesn't matter who you fight. And if you look at Mayweather's career, that's when it changed, and that's when he became Money Mayweather, the businessman.
Yeah, I have no argument there, but I think the Marciano 49-0 to get to 50-0, I think that was a manufactured record, built that the media went along with, and it took on a life of its own. The Marciano record. Blame Larry Holmes. He was building it up, that record.
But Jack, Holmes didn't talk about that until he got really close.
Until he started getting close. Yeah, I mean, fighters only fight a couple of times a year at that level. So to get to 49-0, they're not going to really talk about it until you get to maybe 45 wins at that point. And then at that point, you're going to talk. And Holmes made a big deal out of the Marciano record. And what record are we talking about? I mean, 49-0, that's not a record, but it was manufactured as such.
And Holmes made a good case when he said, I'm an old guy fighting young guys, and he was a young guy fighting old guys. I mean, that is the truth. It's uncomfortable, but it is the truth, Jack. Holmes, all the guys he fought were younger than him.
So I don't get this record. A record is a record. So if someone gets up to a certain amount of wins and then they lose a fight after that, you mean to tell me they don't have the record or whatever? Or they didn't have the record? I just don't get it.
Jack, fans are fickle. Look, didn't Chavez go to 87-0? And nobody talks about that. But he did end up losing. And he didn't make that a big thing about his career. If Andy Reid Andy Reid, I think, has 302 wins. Don Shula has 347. Reid's probably going to coach long enough where he may get that record. And Jack, do you know how many people are going to talk about that when that season comes and he's in striking distance of that record? Same thing we heard with Belichick when he was chasing it. Those numbers, you can say they don't mean anything, but they do. I mean, look in baseball. How much ink did Rose get when he was chasing DiMaggio and he got to 44 and didn't break 56? And who was it that came after Rose that got to 40?
Legitimate record, the 56-game hitting streak. Everyone realized, how valid that was. I mean, there's no asterisks to put aside.
But Marciano's record was legitimate.
Wait. Let me ask you. You did even the detour look at the football, the Belichick and Don Shula situation with postseason victories. I mean, didn't Belichick exceed that? I'm not sure what
he has more postseason wins than Shula, but he has more total wins.
But if you put it on top of the regular season wins,
I think he's like 30 games behind him, 28 games behind him. Shula won. He has 90. He won 347 games in total. 19 were playoff games. So that's how you get to that record. I think Andy Reid with playoff games, I think they showed it last night. He had 301 wins going in. And I think Andy Reid is what, second or third all time? No, he's third. It's Shula, Belichick, and George Halas, and then Reid. Reid's fourth.
Okay. Speaking of that, guy, wait. Who you picking tonight, Frank? The Lions or the Ravens?
The Ravens are going to win and probably cover the 4.5.
Okay. Brian can't comment on that being a Detroit guy.
No, we already talked about it. He's objective. He knows it's a tough spot for the Lions. But Jack, here I'm going to set you up. You are writing a book on one of my all-time favorite fighters. The Spinks Jinx, Michael Spinks. Now, do you know what yesterday's date was and how big of a day that is in his career?
Oh, yeah, beating Larry Holmes for the heavyweight title. And there's a false narrative going around, especially about the first fight. I don't understand this insanity. Well, Holmes got robbed twice. How did he get robbed in the first fight? I can at least understand the argument for the second fight. People feeling he won it. And
I had Holmes winning the second fight.
You had who winning the second? Holmes?
I had Holmes winning the rematch 9-6.
Okay, 9-6. That's a legitimate score. Some people had Spinks edging it out as well. But 9-6 Holmes is a legitimate score. But the first, how did you have the first fight?
8-7 Spinks. I had it coming down to the last round.
Okay.
Which Spinks clearly won. If you give Holmes the benefit of every doubt, that fight is even going into the 15th round. And Spinks peppered the crap out of Holmes in the 15th round. Made him look old and slow.
But if you look at Spinks's leap up in weight to fight a great champion like Holmes, what's more impressive to you? Crawford moving up and fighting Canelo, a Spinks against Holmes. Now, please don't tell me Canelo moved up so many weight divisions. He was a junior middleweight, technically moved up 2 weight divisions. But you want to know something? Technically speaking, Spinks moved up 2 weight divisions too. Bypassed cruiserweight, went to heavyweight, and there's more of a physical disparity, I think, that Spinks had to overcome, more so than Bud Crawford.
Jack, Spinks beating Holmes is the most impressive jump any fighter has made in one fight. Larry Holmes was undefeated. He was 50 pounds heavier than Spinks, any opponent Spinks ever fought. And Holmes was an all-time great champion. That was the best jump for one night any fighter has ever done. I'll debate that with anyone. Spinks had the best jump, Jack. 50 pounds. I don't care about how many weight classes it was. Holmes was 50 pounds bigger than the last guy Spinks was in the ring with. And I'm going to throw something out. He's going to make you crazy. Do you know the UPI and the AP had Holmes winning the first fight?
You know what the UPI and AP is?
One guy.
I learned one guy. One
Right.
guy gives a scorecard, and they say, "Well, the AP scored it, the UPI scored it." One guy, I learned that.
When I was young,
And the
Jack, I
one
used to think it was like
and
10
the one
guys.
guy scoring it, some of the time I know who it is, and he's not that knowledgeable a guy. He's really not that knowledgeable a guy. He's liable to turn to one of us and say, "Who do you think won that round?" And then he's going to check it off, and then we hear UPI, AP.
But I couldn't believe I read that the other day. I had forgotten about that. And look, I'm a huge Larry Holmes fan. I'm a huge Spinks fan. Spinks won the first fight. That's all there is to it. And look, I think a lot of that had to do with his style. I think his style would always give Holmes trouble. Even a prime Holmes. I'm not sure he beat a prime Holmes, but the fact is, Larry Holmes, like Muhammad Ali, did not like chasing smaller, quick guys that did not try to knock them out or hurt them. Jimmy Young had that style, made Ali look a little bit goofy. Spinks had that style, made Holmes look ordinary. So a lot of it had to do with the style, but Holmes did not win the first fight. But I watched the second fight. I probably watched it 15 times and scored it. And of course, the night of the fight, I think Holmes won the second fight a little bit more, by a little more than Spinks won the first fight. But it doesn't matter. To me, they're 1-1 in the ring.
Yeah, you can make that argument. You could even make an argument that Holmes won the first fight. I don't think so. But you're not going to be so terribly off base because there were both were close fights. I had it 8-6-1. At that time, I scored even rounds in the 1980s.
I still do, but
Spinks in the first fight, and I had it 8-6-1 for Holmes in the rematch. So
so we were off. We disagreed by one round on each fight.
Yeah, I mean,
and we both had the same winner, though. You had the first fight 8-6-1 Spinks. I had it 8-7 Spinks. So if you give the draw to Spinks or to Holmes, you still have the same result. And the same thing with the rematch. I had it 9-6. You had it what? 8-6-1?
8-6-1 both fights. First fight for Spinks.
Okay, so
Holmes.
we were a round off.
Yeah. By the way, the book is out, being held by various publishers. I'm like a free agent right now. It's frustrating, very frustrating with book publishers because they seem to be holding on to it like a long time, and then it's a pain in the butt. They get so many submissions. I already got 3 publishers who accepted the book. One of them, I'm not going to name the name, I didn't want to go forward with because I'd have to get releases from everyone I interviewed. And don't get me wrong, Frank Laterzo will sign a release that it's okay to use his words and I don't have to compensate him. But can you imagine me getting back to Don King and Larry Holmes? Hey, guys, you got to sign this release that says I can use what you say and you're not getting paid to compensate it for it. Immediate suspicion. And I talked to so many of his old opponents and this and that, and it's like an impossible thing. They tell me take as long as you need to get it. It's okay. And that and other things. And so I have right now, I know what direction I'm going to be in. I'm going to make a decision next month, who I'm going to go with or whatever. And I'm kind of learning. The best thing may have been, I kind of wish when I was finished with the manuscript last June, I kind of wish I'd just gotten it self-published now. You're waiting on these traditional publishers. They take forever, to get the book out and to get around to things.
2 writers who Jack, have approached me about doing a book of essays on boxing. And I'm not sure I'm going to do it because it's a lot of work. I don't know if I want to put that much time into it, but we'll see down the road. I mean, it's what I would like to do. I don't want to interview guys. I want to write my opinion on certain things. And speaking of which, I talked to Brian about this. I know you saw my post where I said Crawford is Leonard's equal. and I made a path for him beating the guys that Leonard beat. Where are you on that?
I think, Frank, you're moving a little too fast with this Crawford thing. Crawford is an all-time great without question.
Which I've been saying since 2017.
Yeah, but call him the best fighter of this particular generation. That's fine if you want. But I think you're getting a little carried away because the Canelo who lost to Crawford, I mean, he's not beating Sugar. That Canelo's not beating Sugar Ray Leonard.
And I said that.
It's not beating Marvin Hagler. You know, it just wouldn't happen.
Jack, I didn't say Crawford was greater. I didn't say he was greater. I said he's in their class. He's at their level. And as I said to Brian earlier, for the first time in my life, or in 45 years, there's a fighter, Sugar Ray Leonard's weight, who, if you said, Frank, who's going to win, I just don't say Leonard. I'd have to really, really think about that.
But let me
I
tell
think
you
that's fair.
But where you missed the point, where you were trying to make an argument, you said, well, Leonard tried to get every advantage over an opponent like Donnie Lalonde, forcing him into catch weight. It's negotiations. Crawford was in no position to dictate to Canelo, to negotiate. So he had to take the fight on the Canelo's conditions. That's the point. Leonard.
But Jack, that's the thing. Leonard threw his status around that way. He made Hearns come into the catch weight for the super middleweight fight. He couldn't come in above 164. He made Lalonde come in at 168 for their fight. They rushed the Duran rematch. So my point is this. You mean to tell me Terrence Crawford that fought Earl Spence wouldn't beat the Duran that Leonard beat in New Orleans?
Oh, he would. But
that's my point.
Leonard was able to dictate terms. The Duran rematch, Duran's people were foolish to kind of rush him into that fight because the money.
But he bought them off. He got $8 million. Yeah. He never made him more than $1.5 million in a fight. He got $8 million. Of course, he's gonna take that fight, and he's gonna starve himself for 2 weeks to make weight like he did. My point is the stumbling block for Crawford to get the accolades that Leonard has is everybody says, well, Benitez, Hearns, Duran, Hagler. And my point is this. There's a path for Crawford to beat Benitez, who Leonard beat. I think he would beat him handily. I think he would beat the Duran that Leonard beat.
Benitez would give Crawford problems only
for 2 or 3 rounds, Jack. That's all.
Was such a great defensive fighter. I mean, he wouldn't be easy to hit.
He wouldn't be easy for Crawford, Jack, but eventually Crawford would beat him. And if he didn't stop him, he'd win 10 of the 15 rounds or 8 or 9 of the 12 if they fought. But my point is, I think he beats Benitez. Not many people have argued with me on that. I think he beats Duran in New Orleans. Hearns' fight could go either way. And the Crawford that fought Canelo would probably outbox the Hagler that fought Leonard. Not prime Hagler, the Hagler that fought Leonard. And that's the other thing. As much as I love Leonard, Jack, we both know there was no talk of that fight. There was no interest in that fight. Leonard went to see Mugabe and Hagler fight. He saw how many punches Hagler took, how hard of a fight it was. And then what's the first thing that Hagler says to Larry Murch after fight? Larry, this might be the last time you'll see me. I think I'm going to go. I think I've had enough of this game. I've proved my point. 2 weeks later, Leonard goes on a radio station in New York and tells, I think, Rock Newman, you know what? I'd come back to fight Hagler. And then he went on Johnny Carson. Then Hagler had to go on Johnny Carson to answer him. And then we got the fight. We know that Leonard waited. I'm not saying he spent his whole 5 years when he was out of boxing waiting. Well, I'm going to wait for Hagler to get old. No, I don't think he did that. But I think he saw the opportunity. So again, my only point is this. Everybody says Leonard beat X guys and Crawford didn't fight guys that good. Well, Crawford retired Porter and Spence, and he handled Canelo pretty easy. And I just think vintage Crawford, there's a path for him to beat the big guys that Leonard beat. I didn't say he definitely would, but it's a conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Crawford is in that category. We like to talk about who belongs in the same car. Let's say it's a 6-seater, and let's say Brian could relate to this. You take the quarterbacks. Brady's behind the wheel, whatever. You could put Manning behind the wheel. They're all in the front seat. Brady's sitting with Manning. Joe Montana's with him in the 3-seater. And then in the back seat, you have a number of guys. You could put Patrick Mahomes there for sure. You could put Aaron Rodgers there.
Elway.
San Marino, Elway. There wouldn't be space maybe for all of them, unless you get an extra big van. But the point is, it's not ridiculous to say one of the marginal quarterbacks was great. Like if I was going to say, in my opinion, Brett Favre was the greatest quarterback of all time, very few people would agree. But I don't think people would say that's utterly ridiculous or laugh at it. They'll say, I can see your point, but you're flat out wrong.
Jack, I could see your point with that, but that everybody would bring up he threw 325 interceptions, and that's the part that might make your argument hard to make.
Ever, but he's great enough where let's say it was your team. Your team needed a quarterback in the worst way, and you could have anyone in the history of football. Obviously, you would want Brady, Manning, Mahomes. That short list, right? Anyone would for their team. But what happens if you were going to get, hypothetically, a Jim Kelly? You wouldn't be crying about it. You'd say, he wasn't my first choice. Those guys are a little bit better, but I absolutely can win with him, and I'm not losing any sleep over it.
Okay. I can see what you're saying. But what I can't understand.
This is why I had asked a question to Frank earlier, Jack, about how he compares, meaning Crawford compares to Sugar Ray, because it's like the generational, and you said it best. He's a generation. He's really good in his generation. Crawford, as Sugar Ray was with his generation. It's kind of like, I made the point with Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I think LeBron James was the GOAT in his era, as do I think Michael Jordan was the GOAT in his era and LeBron James was the GOAT in his era, because they are. Does that mean that they are better than one another? I can't say that for sure, because we can't go back.
But you have to. But Brian, you have to pick one though. Nobody's going to argue LeBron's not the best, but in sports, half the fun is arguing about who would win, who is better. So if I said to you, Jordan or LeBron, who would it be?
They pick different type of games. If I'm going to ask you who was a better pitcher, Roger Clemens and Mariano Rivera, how can you compare starter to reliever? LeBron and Jordan have different games.
But they were both starters and the cornerstone of the league when they played. You're right. You can't compare a starter and a reliever. But Jordan or LeBron, one of those guys is better. And I would say 70% of the population says it's Jordan. 30 would say it's LeBron. I think it's Jordan. I'm asking Brian, if you have to pick one of them, Brian, who would it be?
I don't pick either one, because I can't.
Okay.
I can't say one is better than the other one, because they played in two different types of basketball eras. They're two different positions, so you can't say one is better than the other one. LeBron is good in this era. Okay. Jordan was great. LeBron is great in this era. Jordan was great in his era. That's all. I can't. I mean, if sunshine was everything, we would be having it all the time, but it's not. So I can't.
So if I said to you, who's the greatest basketball player of all time, you really couldn't give me an answer.
Nope. Couldn't give you an answer.
Okay.
I mean,
That's
you
fair.
can look at it like this too. People in Jordan's era, when people were talking about Jordan as the greatest basketball era,
Said Will.
they would defer back to even further than that with another player. So that won 12 championships.
Bill Russell.
So I mean,
why is Jordan better than, let's say, Oscar Robertson, for example? Wasn't the Big O as good in his era as Jordan was in his?
I mean, Jack, is there a case for that? Yes, but I just think Jordan has Muhammad Ali intangibles where he was feared when the game was on the line. He was never going to miss, and he was going to find a way to get it done in the biggest spots. I don't think you can say that. The only player I've seen that in my lifetime is probably Larry Bird, but he doesn't pass Jordan. I don't see LeBron or Kobe on that level.
Like I gave you an example before, space in the car, like 6 openings. You're starting a team or whatever. You have a chance to draft anyone in the history of the game, and you miss out on Jordan and get Kobe Bryant. You're hardly going to miss a beat. In all honesty, a team. So, okay, you'd say, oh, we missed out on Jordan. No, not a big deal. We got Kobe. So it's so close. Different. If you're starting a team, you're better off with LeBron James than Michael Jordan. He'll impact the team more positively. If you want to get over the top peak value at the very top of their game, then you give an edge to Jordan. To answer your question.
I mean,
So
that's a nuanced way to put it, Jack. I'll go with that. But if I have my first pick, I'm taking Jordan.
So one name you didn't mention with Crawford, Frank, Roy Jones. I'll make the argument Roy Jones, same way as Crawford. Crawford doesn't beat Roy Jones. You never tackle that one.
Jack, Crawford is a better fighter than Roy Jones. Roy Jones was more athletic, but when Roy Jones slowed down, he became hittable.
I don't want to hear that. Peak value. At peak value, Roy Jones more likely than not beats the best version of Terrence Crawford at peak value. Argue and say Crawford had a greater career if you want, that's fine. Because of the way Jones fell off the cliff.
I'm not sure at peak value he's better. I'm not sure that Roy's better than Ray either. But they're in the conversation. You're right.
Okay.
I'll definitely go there. Roy was a phenom for a while, but he had some issues. But then again, if you look at what he did, he handled Hopkins when Hopkins was close to his prime. He handled Tony when he was close to his prime. And he did go up. He didn't beat the best heavyweight in the world, but he lapped one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world. And that was a big thing. If he retires after Ruiz, I will say this, he's ranked higher than Crawford.
Yeah, we only have like about a minute and a half, but sometimes, you can only beat what's out there in reality. Like
Right.
You look at Joe Louis's body of work, he beat most of the great fighters who he beat, on the way up, on the way to the title. Carnera, Sharkey.
Jack, who was the best guy Lewis beat? I've actually thought about that. That's pretty hard.
That's a good question.
Schmeling, Bear,
maybe
Sharkey?
Joe Walcott in the rematch, because the best was yet to come for Walcott as a heavyweight.
You know what? Walcott would be favored probably. Would Walcott be favored over Schmeling and Bear?
I think he beats them. Yeah.
Okay, well then that may be the best guy he beat. And he was at the end of his career when he did that, which even makes him look better.
Yeah. But I think we're pretty much coming to an end. But we got to get on this discussion a little more. Like a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson, you won't budge on him, Frank. We can't dare mention anyone in the same category as him.
He's the best I've ever seen, Jack.
Okay, so we'll touch on that a little more, maybe next week.
Jack, who wins tonight, the Rams or the Lions? I mean, the Ravens or the Lions?
The Ravens tonight, but the Lions showed me something last week, and I assume the Lions are going to play them tough tonight. Lions might even win. Lions will be in the playoffs, but whether they break the heart.
You know who the Jets play next week, right?
Remains to be
The
seen.
Jets get their first win next week.
Well,
They play the Dolphins.
yeah, they better get their first win. They should. The Jets next week. Yeah.
Is that game in New York or Miami?
I think it's in Miami, which
The
doesn't
Dolphins might pull that out.
which doesn't make sense. Don't you want that game in Miami when the weather in New York is so cold? Why are they going to play
Absolutely,
in New
but
York?
the Dolphins can't pick that. They must rotate.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Great show,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back this time next week.